All right, karibu sana. Welcome to the program. It's 8 minutes past 7 a.m. Time for us to get into the political segment of this show, your favorite segment, that is Eye on Politics. My guests are already in studio. I have got Churchill Saoke, who is a governance and policy analyst, already in studio, as well as Francis Mwangagi, who is the Deputy Governor of Machakos County. Gentlemen, up and early, good morning.
Good morning.
Let me start with you, Churchill. Did you go to church over the weekend?
Oh, yes, I did. Yeah, we have to connect with our Maker.
I remember when we were young, we were being asked, Pastor Lesema nini leo? Just to test whether you were so attentive in church or something. But I hope you had a good one, though.
Yeah.
DG, how is our neighboring county?
Very well. Except the normal challenges facing Kenyans across.
Are you excited?
And I also went to several churches yesterday. Yes.
Okay. You'll tell us more on that. And remember, devolution starts tomorrow?
True.
You must be so happy about that.
Yes. Okay. And optimistic at the same time.
Right.
Yes.
We'll talk about that. But later on, let me take you through the traffic situation in 1 minute, beginning right now. Let me take you through the traffic situation in the city. Let me start with Nairobi, first of all. So far, so good. It looks okay because it's just a few minutes past 7 a.m. So better part of the city center still looking good. The major road, which is Thika Superhighway, is already a mess, beginning all the way from Survey coming to Kenya Utalii Hotel, down to Muthaiga Square there, bumper to bumper. That crosses over to Muthaiga Golf Club. That is along Kiambu Road, all stretching, and very shortly it will reach at the DCI headquarters. But joining Thika Road, it's moving until you get to around Pangani. It moves very well until you get to Globe Roundabout and ultimately into the CBD. The bit coming into the CBD from Western Circuit, that is Westlands, that direction, also moving well. ABC Place coming all the way to Westlands, Roundabout coming, but there's a bit of some gridlock around the museum interchange. Now that is the only interchange that is, perhaps this is the one joining, yes, from the exit at the toll station there, as you head towards Thika Road. That's where the traffic is all about. But apart from that, moving into the CBD, moving pretty well. Of course, outbound towards Mombasa Road and inbound city center, moving well. So if you're coming all the way from Cabanas using Mombasa Road, you are free to come to the CBD. Ngong Road, looking pretty well. Nothing much to worry about at this particular hour. Let me talk to those people who are coming all those sides of Eastlands. The Makadara, that's Jogoo Road. Jogoo Road is moving pretty well. The only problem is around Makadara, but you move towards ACK St. Peter's down there, coming towards City Stadium is a bumper to bumper, but after that coming to around Marikiti there, also moving pretty well. So that is the situation in the CBD. If you want to come to the city, come running if you can. Okay, Mombasa ikoaje? Nyali Road, so far so good. A bit of some traffic hapo karibu Kengeleni, but after that, it's moving very well past Nyali New Bridge, New Nyali Bridge down there, coming into the Masai Mombasa city center, joining Rodalangala Road there, coming into the CBD. Kila kitu iko shwari. The problem is around the Likoni ferry crossing channel there. That is where the problem is. So you have to be patient, Watu wa Mombasa, because you have to wait for the ferry from both sides to cross you over. And finally, let's head over to Kisumu City. Moving very well. All the way from Riat Hills, moving from, that is Kakamega Road, coming down into the CBD, all okay. Kondele Roundabout, joining the city center, Kisumu, looking great. How about outbound, inbound towards Ahero, Chinoyo, that side? So far, so good. So what Kisumu, you have a moment to go to work. I'll take you through the front page of our international news, but that will come shortly. Let me start with our local dailies. Starting with the Standard newspaper. Standard newspaper, on the front page, U.S. hand in Ruto-Raila talks. U.S. hand in Ruto-Raila talks. Delaware Senator Chris Coons, who has been involved in Kenya's political situation, met opposition leader Raila Odinga and is set to meet President William Ruto today as United States seeks lasting stability of its key regional ally. That is on the front page of the Standard newspaper. And then still on the front page, 10-year wait to hit revenue targets. This is all about devolution. Money matters. Of course, there has been some mind-boggling figures here. Money generated by counties in 2014-2015 stood at 33 billion shillings. Amount counties targeted to raise in 2015-2016 was 50 billion shillings. Amount collected in 2018-2019 in the 2019-2020 financial year, county governments generated 35 billion shillings, which represent around 65.2% of their set annual target of 54.9 billion. But the amount collected was 40 billion. That is in the year 2018-2019. The figure continues to go there. And lastly, Controller of Budget report that these 9 months of 2022-2023, counties raised a total of 28.7 billion shillings from own source revenue, which was a decline compared to 27.09 billion shillings generated in a similar period the previous financial year. This is going to be forming part of the discussion as the devolution conference begins tomorrow in Uasin Gishu County. Perhaps I should just start with the DJ. It's so close to your heart. There's an increase, a decline in revenue collection, on-source revenue collection in the counties. What do you make of this?
Maybe economic challenges.
Right.
Or sometimes it can also be as a result of many factors. Counties are unable to collect revenue as it is required. Also, there is the issue of creativity and innovation in terms of coming up with various sources to increase the revenue. Also outdated laws, because when it comes to land, for example, many counties are still grappling with the independent laws that were put in place. So there are various challenges that are pushing counties not to correct as much as they are supposed to do. And also, the capacity and the capability. Some counties, or rather many counties, could not be able to collect because of lack of capacity, lack of maybe the qualified personnel. There is also the issue of leadership, management. Now, if you don't know what you are doing, or rather you are elected as a populist politician, and you are just heading there, maybe you are unable to put down policies, strategies that can lead to more revenue collection. There is also, lastly, the question of corruption in some cases. If you go by reports, particularly from the Senate, there's a lot of corruption around there. There's a lot. So there are various challenges that hinder our counties from collecting what they are supposed to do. Yes.
Okay. Churchill, it's 10 years down the line, and Uasin Gishu is also blessed to be hosting this. But, you know, the hits and misses, we discussed this last week, but now that it's now drawing closer and closer to the function, perhaps Kenya should be clapping at the milestone that we've achieved so far, 10 years down the line.
Yeah, I think to be fair, it is important to appreciate that 10 years down the line we have somehow achieved certain gains of devolution. If you look at pre-devolution, there are certain areas in this country that could not be able to achieve even some very basic services. And today you can be able to see some infrastructural growth in certain grassroots levels in different parts of this country. And so we must appreciate that there are certain, even just transfer of money. I can tell you that there are some parts of this country that the only monies that used to come from the national government was those monies from teachers. And today you can see that people can be able to to talk about some finances getting into the local communities, and you are seeing bungalows being built, whether they are being built from corrupt money from the counties. It is irrespective. It is important for us to see the better devil, all right? If people are getting services at the local level because money has been decentralized, I think these are gains 10 years down the line, and I think that it also does not stop us from seeing the razor blade through into the devolution process in terms of just trying to interrogate how perfect it is. It is our role to look at it and interrogate it deeply so that we perfect it. So I think in criticizing it, we perfect it, but we also appreciate that we have made certain gains.
All right. Gabriel Kagombe, Member of Parliament, Gatundu South. Mheshimiwa, karibu sana to the show.
Asante sana.
We are starting with something close to our hearts. I mean, Devolution Conference begins tomorrow, and that's forming part of our discussion here this morning. 10 years down the line, Kenyans really fought for it, you can imagine. At a time like this, 10 years ago, many counties are still grappling with collecting some, the revenue, on-source revenue collection, the national government also chipping in. But what are some of the hits and misses from your own perspective?
First of all, devolution is something to be applauded. It was the most welcome idea.
Yeah.
And I like what my colleague just said, that when I drive into Nyandarua and I find, some development, some flats, some proper housing units, that is, whether it's from private money, is because people know that they're going to house some people. The investors know that they're going to house people, and that's how they build them. So, first of all, devolution is a most welcome idea. When it comes to revenue collection, Victor, we have had a culture of not paying taxes. And I would understand, because probably we have also had a culture of corruption. So people are afraid. When I hear people afraid to pay taxes, I know where they're coming from. But when there's accountability of money that has been paid, has been collected from people, then people voluntarily want to pay taxes. And it is not a small journey. It's a long journey that we've come. It's a long journey that we've come from 2002, when President Kibaki took power. And he said, tulipe ushuru tujitegemee. So the only thing that I find in revenue, on-source collection of revenue within counties, is probably we need to use ICT better. We need to automate systems. And we also need to be, we need to be candid with our people. When you know that you're going to spend money properly, you have no fear to impose proper taxes and to impose proper, tax regime. But while we're still doing it, we must know that tax systems and tax infrastructure must be guided by investments. You must be guided by manufacturing. It must be guided by production. So every county must think of itself and know what its forte is, what it's strong with, because the county that has tourism, for example, a county like Narok, is very different from a county like Nyandarua. I mean, so, we must think about where we are strong, and then make our tax infrastructure reflect the kind of production that counties are able to do. When you have an agricultural county, you must enable people to do value addition, so that you create your tax infrastructure around that. So, and I think that is where devolution and our devolved governments have not been really able to maximize on their strong areas. And we still need to think about that, because when we are talking about of a country developing, and we're saying that, and I know you saw when you're doing the Finance Act, and we're saying that we need to improve, production in this country, and we say, for instance, we started with the very basic things. We started with things like furniture. We started with things like fish. We said, no, we must stop importation of such by creating a tax infrastructure that discourages it. So even counties must start thinking like that and saying, if we are the county of Kisumu and we do fishing here, we make a tax infrastructure that allows and enables fishing, and probably allows people to even come and invest better in better ways of fishing.
Now that calls for counties to start realizing their strengths. In their revenue collection, in their capabilities. Probably when you go to an example of Kisumu and, you know, the counties surrounding the lake, or even, you know, they find their strength and capitalize on that. I think that should form a part of the discussion.
You know, Victor, I saw a county like Laikipia some years back in the news that they have produced some contraption of sorts in the name of a motor vehicle, you know. And I said, this is a county that
some of those things requires policy framework.
I said this is a county that produces sisal, for instance, without much trouble. You know, if we had taken our investments to aside, you say. You probably have a textile industry, or you're able to produce cotton, produce sisal and process it, and you know, it would be different. So we must start thinking about our strengths as counties and investing in them, and then after that creating a tax infrastructure around it after we have given incentive to investors.
Okay. All right, let me take you through the front page of the Star newspaper. Dialogue, something quite almost similar to what we have on the Standard newspaper here. Dialogue, Raila Ruto meets US Senator. That is in August last year. Kunz engaged in shuttle diplomacy between the duo to unlock the stalemate over the outcome of the polls. He's back again. The American politician believed to have played a key role in the 2018 handshake is again on a mission to end hostilities between Kenya Kwanza and Azimio. Now, Delaware Senator Chris Andrew Kunz on Sunday met Azimio leader Raila Odinga, and is also expected to meet President William Ruto as the Kenya Kwanza Azimio talks enter the second week at the Bomas of Kenya. We'll be taking a look at that. And finally, on the front page of the Daily Nation, business of war. This is completely different. Business of war. 12 years of costly battle. After more than a decade of Kenya Defence Forces involvement in Somalia, a total of 52 billion shillings has been spent on procuring weapons, combat equipment, and equipping troops. But has the military intervention achieved its goals? That is a big question here. 52 billion shillings spent from up to the end of 2022, over 52 billion shillings spent on procuring weapons, etc., etc. And still on the front page of the Daily Nation, Kindiki warns Raila on protest. The Interior CS Kithure Kindiki has warned Azimio leader Raila Odinga against threatening to resume protest if the planned talks at the Bomas of Kenya do not go their way. He urged the opposition to allow dialogue to continue peacefully and accept the outcome. Very quickly, allow me to take you through the front page of the BBC here. That is on the front page of the BBC. The deathly silence of Maui's wildfire sirens. That is on the front page of the BBC. That is when a fire hurricane hit Maui's sirens over sounded. That is what is on the front page of the BBC. So that is what is there. How about France 24? Live. Niger. Junta says that they will prosecute President Bazoum for quote-unquote high treason. That is what is here on France 24. Niger's military regime vowed on Sunday, that is late on Sunday, to prosecute ousted President Mohamed Bazoum for quote-unquote high treason, and slammed West African leaders for imposing sanctions on the country. At the same time, ECOWAS has also approved the deployment of a quote-unquote standby force to restore situational order in Niger as soon as possible, but remains committed to finding a diplomatic solution to the crisis. That is what is happening across our borders. And so far, 6 Niger soldiers, 10 suspected jihadists killed in fighting. When your neighbor's house is on fire, you must act. and save the situation. That is what we have as far as international news is concerned. So, gentlemen, the question here as we started, Mheshimiwa DG, when you talk about devolution, how do you think counties can work as Siamese twins? For example, Sia County working with Tana River, working with Taita Taveta, so that devolution can go hand in hand. That when Machakos progresses, Nairobi also progresses in connection, that there is no missing link between the counties. We move as a team, moving to the next phase of the decade.
Thank you. A number of things. One, I think our counties, first and foremost, should do a proper analysis of themselves. What is this one county is good at that can be focused on? Then on that focus, you also bring in the issue of innovation and creativity. We need to think of our counties as centers of innovation, growth, and creativity. If we promote creativity at that level, chances are high many counties will go far. Now, there is something they call, I think it's in marketing, they call this when you produce in large scale. In one area you avoid certain costs because you are producing in large and addressing to a certain market.
Economies of scale.
Yes, economies of scale. Now, in this case, if, for example, Machakos can have a strength in one item, in one service, it means Kitui can now concentrate on something else, the neighboring county, and then they form an economic bloc that is going to benefit as a whole that region. I also think we have had also a challenge that we need also to bring up. You know, as we celebrate 10 years of devolution, it is on record that I think successive administrations, particularly at the national level, have not been serious with the devolution. Why am I saying this? So many services were devolved to our counties, but you find resources remained in Nairobi. How do you expect the county leadership to function? How do we expect counties to be centers of innovation and creativity when you are holding funds at the central level? So I am optimistic because I know the new administration, as we have met severally, and there is a very strong commitment that the functions that were devolved, funds will follow. And it is last week a government-led agency revealed to the country that then the national government is holding almost over 272 billion worth of functions that are supposed to be to have gone to counties. So in this case, whatever we are saying, counties have this strength, can do this, there is also the issue of resources. When you are holding those resources and you are just there dreaming as the county leadership, there is very little you can do because you need these resources to advance that agenda and to make our counts. You know, if today Kiambu, for example, or Kajiado becomes a center of one known item, or rather one known service, chances are high that count is not only the one which is progressing, but the entire country.
Okay, let's take a break. When you come back, I just wanted to pick it from there, DJ, so that we get it right. And do Wananchi also understand their role to enhance devolution? Being the voter, you are given the mantle, but as a common Wananchi, do we really understand what devolution is all about? Let's talk about that much and more when you come back after this break. Stay with us. Karibu sana. Okay, so let's start from where we left. Churchill, let me get it from you. Based on what the DG said, devolution moving forward, what's the role of Wananchi? Perhaps sometimes just leave it fully to the leaders to run with it. But what is our main role as members of this movement?
Thanks, Victor. I think before I answer the issue of the role of Mwananchi, it's important for us to underscore something about the need to find a middle ground between the centralism, you know, the belief of centralism and the belief of devolution. There is still a little bit of tug of war in terms of, and I think this is one of the things that is bringing what DG was talking about, you know, issues around holding of funds and things like that. You know, there are people, and this is not just about regimes. There are people who still believe in services being centralized. And there's no keenness in decentralization of some of these resources. And you might find that more frustrations of counties is likely to trigger more centralism of these resources. And I think that it's important for people who believe in devolution and who devolution have helped, and this calls for people from all cadre to think more strategically about the need to strengthen devolution, because you know you can have a good regime today, but if you do not put proper checks and balances that safeguards devolution into the future, you are likely to see a fallback where there is deeper frustration of devolution services, and the need for people now to have some of these decentralized services being brought back to the country. And I will give you an example of the health. For example, you know, health was one of the services that was devolved, especially health services. And you can see that there is some sort of an attempt to bring it back into the national level, because of the frustrations that are happening of it being devolved. What is being seen is that the counties are not handling health well. But is that really the case? It's not necessarily. It could be that they are not being provided with the right resources to manage health effectively at the devolved level.
It could be deliberate.
So that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
It could be a deliberate attempt to centralize holistically health, because you see, health, for example, was the only part that was left for the national government is regulation policy, but health services was for the counties. So it's important for us to look at it more strategically and more independently beyond regimes and sustainably, so that we can be able to sustain devolution, you know, to generations. The role of the public, as you had said, is pretty clear. You know, one of it is to ensure that the DG that we get is as competent as Mheshimiwa here. You know, we get competent leaders, we get competent governors who can be able to handle take our counties to greater levels. We also need to understand our role beyond just elections. What is our role in issues around budgeting, public participation, in ensuring that we engage in policy advocation of policy directions? Because you see, everything before a county does, there is always public participation, which has been provided for in the Constitution. How much is the public involved? What initiatives do the people take to ensure that they put their views in some of these policy proposals or drafts that are being brought by the county? So it is important that the public see their civic duty in advancing, in informing policy, and also their role as electorate, and even providing vigil. You know, there is a lot of work being done by civil society organizations in trying to build the capacity of the public to promote social accountability in the counties. How much are they actively participating in this? And so I think when I look at it from a civic perspective, where we see we make the public to see their civic duty in providing oversight, all right, in ensuring that proper leaders are in power, in ensuring that, you know, they well understand what the counties do, then they will end up now being in a position where they are not just seeing the county there and us here, but being part of the counties.
There is no gap.
Exactly.
But when you look at it, Gabriel, do you think Parliament also plays a key role? Much as there are some functions still not fully devolved, the national government still holds a bit of some functions. What is the role of Parliament in fast-tracking some of these functions to fully go into the counties? Because as Mheshimiwa would say, they would really want to have full control of these functions. But a bit of still is still remaining with the national government. Where is the national government or Parliament coming in to unlock the stalemate?
First we have the two houses of Parliament.
Yes.
And of course, Senate is a house that has more to do with the devolution. But that said, there are some issues that I find a bit still confused. Because as he says, as Churchill says, even the public does not understand. For example, when you talk about health, if you're talking about Gatundu Hospital and there's a problem in Gatundu Hospital, the Mwananchi doesn't know that this is a devolved function. And Mwananchi just knows that the member of parliament for that area needs to address the issue of health. And when there is a challenge, you will hear more often than not people referring to the member of parliament. But devolution is also something that that will take some time to be, government is an elephant, moves very slowly, turns in a very slow, pace. But ultimately, people will come to understand, and even devolution itself will come to roost properly, and everyone will understand their roles. We have some challenges, for example, with education. You find you have a primary school that has ECD, primary school, and JSS, all in one compound, having one leadership, because the board of management is one, and the piece of land is one, the parcel of land is one, the title deed is one. Everything is one, but the management is also different. So I think there are also some things that we probably would want to legislate better. I have, for instance, seen in my county some issues where the governor says that we want the ECD to be, we want to run ECD properly, and we even want to open a bank account and everything. Then the primary school head teacher says, no, I'm not going to give you a title deed or the certificate for the registration of the school to go and open a bank account and such things, So I still feel that Parliament has more legislation to do regarding devolution as a whole, so that we allocate roles to different arms of government or to different devolved units, depending on how we find ourselves. Because you see, we must also accept that we had never been here before, so some of this, we found ourselves in the deep end, and therefore we have legislation that we need to do. But this has to come from a recommendation from governors and the county governments and Mheshimiwa here and his colleagues, and they look at things and tell us, we think we need better legislation on this side.
Which I believe you've done, probably in your caucus. And so where's the bottleneck, where the problem is? Because you'll push it to the national government, to the National Assembly, but have you put forward your recommendations?
There is something in international relations they call interests. When a while ago I served as a member of parliament, I looked at the counties as a nuisance. I thought I was having the same thing. I'm not blaming anyone holding those services or those funds. I was thinking I should be doing everything. But the time has come. We need to look at the country and say we need to develop. And we need to move away from 1965 central-led policy that ensured it is only where you get more, you invest more. Now, what is happening at the moment is there's something Mheshimiwa is not telling you. He would wish to take a water project to his constituency. He would wish to take an hospital separately from what the county government of Kiambu is doing. He would wish to champion so that he is seen.
DG is misled.
You see,
He thinks I would want to take his water as a project. I am the one who gives water to Nairobi and I mean, he has no forests, he has no mountains, he has no rivers.
Are you trying to threaten us? You're trying to threaten us.
The thing is, much more.
That if you don't talk to you nicely, then we are going to starve.
You must talk to us so that you get water. I mean,
the point I'm putting across, I'm not necessarily referring to Mwashima here, but I'm saying as members of parliament, we could caucus and talk and see, because if the county government comes and says, oh, these devolved functions, they are functions that are pro the population. If you are talking about water, you are talking about village roads, you are talking about hospitals, that is something that is touching Mwananchi at the grassroots level. So if counties are empowered financially, there is a thinking that, hey, they will do everything and I will be seen like I've not done anything at the end of my term. That is the only threat we have for devolution. Number two, there is something that is institutional, and I think that could be the problem with the framers of our constitution. The way I've seen it, I stand to be corrected. You know, we have a house, we have a chamber called Senate, and we have National Assembly. At Council of Governors, we concentrate more on engaging Senate. But there is something that is never overemphasized. Senate cannot discuss any single money bill. They are just there talking. They cannot discuss anything on money. 100% that is National Assembly. So when you are told you have a house that is custodian of devolution, yet it cannot engage effectively on the issue touching on the money, what are we saying?
So that's the question, because when I ask Gabriel the question of National Assembly,
there is something I will tell you.
To the Senate.
If you are not discussing about money, even at county level, you are a lesser being, I will tell you. Even in your house today, if as the head of that family you cannot provide, it is somebody else who is providing, I can tell you, you do not have that power, and it is in African. You need to have resources. And that's why we champion, let's have resources within the county, so that when citizens, when selectorates, when voters go to the county government offices, they can access these services. So in this case, that is another major challenge, because what we are discussing in the Senate, in terms of monies, the National Assembly is just watching, because they know they have the final say, and go to court. The law is very clear. Anything money matters, as far as laws are concerned, that is 100% National Assembly. Yet we don't seem like we are engaging them enough at the council governors level. So in this case, I think going forward, to strengthen devolution, and as we celebrate many milestones that has been meant by devolution since it came to being, I think it is also very important we look at how do we address this matter of financing devolution in this country, and we bring in the National Assembly, because that is where it matters. That is where it matters.
Churchill, when we listen to that, the two houses have always had that a bit of some not so good relationship, quote unquote, which is the bigger house, the smaller house, the most superior. But when I ask Gabriel the question of now, where does the National Assembly come in to fast track devolution and probably just to unlock the chain and fully hand over some of this function to the county government, he tossed it over to the Senate. Now, Mheshimiwa is saying that, Senate has a particular role, but when it comes to certain functions and debate, it goes back to the National Assembly. We'll have to bear with this for a very long time.
I think it's because, you see, when you look at the role of the National Assembly, it's very broad, because they they sort of oversight the monies that go to the county through, you know, they are able to, you know, once the CRA is able to develop this the amount of money that should go to the counties, it's the National Assembly, it goes through the Senate, and the National Assembly is the one that approves it holistically. But then the detail of the amount, the monies that is expended at the national level is entirely in the hands of the National Assembly. And so, you know, maybe what the DG is worried about is, and I think not the DG but the governors, is that based on past tussles that have been between the Senate and the National Assembly in terms of how much money the revenue allocation bill has always been a big war between the two houses, and you will always find that the National Assembly has got a stronger say on it, because they will determine how much, they're the ones who determine how much money does the national government spends. So if the CRA, based on their schedules that they always have after every 5 years, determines that this XYZ is the amount that we should allocate to the counties, the National Assembly must approve it. Right? Then once it is approved is when it's brought back. That's now the money that the Senate now has control over to oversight through into the counties.
DG is not so happy about that statement.
So ideally,
it's a proposal.
Okay.
It's a proposal CRA makes to Parliament.
Exactly.
And Parliament is not obliged to stick to that proposal.
So Parliament is not obliged to stick to it.
Yes.
But then you will always find, because of the kind of machinations that happen at the national level, because you see, the national government is also interested in having as not much money going into the counties. And so they will always try to work with the National Assembly to try to reduce this money to some level, and I think that has always been the task. And sorry to just to finish, the framers of the Constitution maybe believed that there would be a good working mechanism between the two houses. All right, and maybe that is why they overlooked the detail, and you might also see that the interests that were being mentioned here are always at play. They'll never come on the fore, but they are always at play on the underground in terms of who is going to be in charge of, because you see, once this money has been disbursed, either to the counties or either to the national government, I mean, the interests are always key to politicians. Yeah,
because when you look at what the governors always talk about, the Senate will do their oversight role to the counties. But, Gabriel, the question of now the Senate and the National Assembly, when you hear the two gentlemen speak, it seems a certain role has to be given to the Senate. If the issue of appropriation of the funds, if the Senate has to be given that role to oversight, then don't you think that role also to appropriate money to the county should also go to the Senate, so that they have got one stream of communication between the counties and the Senate?
You must look at this thing from a perspective of counties being units or user units. Because when you're talking about the management of the consolidated fund, we cannot have two centers of managing that fund, because you're going to create now confusion. The role of Senate is to oversee the devolved units.
What has been given by the National Assembly?
Yes.
Okay.
But the role of appropriating, managing the consolidated fund completely, whether it is to the counties, whether it is to the ministries, whether it is to sagas, it is purely the mandate of the National Assembly. And that is the only way you're able to create sanity within the management. Because you see, we also have issues of appropriation. We also have issues of the oversight of accounts, of committees like public accounts. So we must allow. There's no. You see, I don't know why you see a difference. You know, it's like saying that now when you come to the Ministry of Forestry, for instance, and the Ministry of Agriculture, that you need someone else to appropriate money to those ministries. You must look at counties from that perspective. That the whole point, as what DG had said earlier, what devolution was trying to do is remove this idea of we only take our monies to this one area. And then you brought an area that every part of this country must be developed. You know, but that does not stop. That did not change the issue of appropriation. So the whole issue of appropriation belongs to the National Assembly. What counties do, and why you find them voting, and when they vote in what we call delegates, in delegation, is because they're supposed to be overseeing counties, and they have specific counties where they come from. And that's how they're supposed to look at it. But I also want to depart a bit from what the DG said on an issue of how counties used to be or how government used to be run before. That government used to put a lot of emphasis and a lot of money where it was getting returns. You must be careful not to invest where we will never reap, because this is government money, this is public funds, and must be used properly. Even when we say that now we devolve and every county must receive its fair share, even that county now must be careful to make sure that it maximizes its resources to where it can get more resources and to where it can help its people better. You know, because we must look at counties from a perspective of their going concerns also, and we must look at their future and see, and we must look at them as businesses. You know, not per se as businesses. I don't want to be misquoted, because people have been misquoted before on issues of shareholding. And you know, when I say businesses, then it therefore follows that. You mean good. You mean good. I don't mean to go that route, but I mean, if I'm in the county of Mandera, for instance, just for as an example, I must think about, if I'm given some 13 billion. I must think of how I will use this money so that it can help these people even tomorrow. I must invest it in places where it has returns. And as a country also, we must think of it, because that's why you find that in the revenue, in the sharing of revenue, you find that we put some monies in certain areas. You know, we say we were in manufacturing. Then you might want to put electricity in some areas. That's why we create some special economic zones or EPZs and such, so that you know you have a pool of labor. Then you want to create some infrastructure so that you bring some production. So counties must also think like that. We just don't spend money because we have it and it's public money. We must think of counties as going concerns.
Okay. I want to take a break. When you come back, DG, that bit of the National Assembly will do its role, but the prudent use of the resources now will go squarely onto the county bosses and you as the deputies. You are the final say. You've been given whatever you've been given, but then now from the own source revenue, we'll also have to go round in circle to benefit the people of particular counties. And then just moving forward when you come back. But the most important one, the talks begins today. What should we look at? Let's take a look at that when we come back after this break. Gabriel Kagombe, Francis Mwangagi, and Churchill Saoke with me in studio. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back, and asante sana for staying with us. Okay, let's get to the final discussion of this. I mean, devolution is quite close to our hearts. We're all of us, even the way we started this show, we started the gains about devolution. So, DG, you know what really happens is the string between the National Assembly, the Senate, and now into the whole set of devolution. We are starting the new phase, perhaps by the end of this week. Whenever you sit as a caucus, Council of Governors, whenever you have a meeting with the executive, what are some of these teething issues so that the final say will now fall on you in terms of management of the resources you are given, in terms of taking full control of your counties, while as well having that control of separation of powers, National Assembly, Senate, and Executive?
First of all, I would say the following. One is, I think, in a way, we need to change, not to change, but to introduce the Council of Counties, so that the Council of Governors is an organ within Council of Counties. Because you personalize, yes, when you say Council of Governors, it is like a governors meeting. But if you say Council of Counties, that is more institutional. And then it is counties across this country coming together. Then we have those other organs. I think that is those are my personal thoughts. But to your question, you know, money is everything. We are discussing about money. Money is being dealt at the National Assembly. I think the leadership of National Assembly, including that of the budget, including the leadership of the majority, and to an extent even the Speaker himself, should in a way be part of the council that is deciding on the funds that are supposed to go to counties. Why am I saying this? At the end of everything, the National Treasury will make some proposals. And before that proposal finds its way to the National Assembly, the members of National Assembly have a say on what comes to them. And if you don't listen to them, you will bring your proposal and they will deal with it the best way they know. They will put the proposal that they intended to. Although the law says you cannot change to a certain extent, but you know, if you are bringing something for me to approve, for me to deal with it, and then maybe take it forward for presidential ascending to law,
yes,
it is only me who knows what I can do. And the discussion in budget making, you know, counties are nowhere. It is actually a process that is National Assembly led. So if devolution is to be strengthened, we have as a country to have a conversation. How do we bring ourselves to the center of the National Assembly where this thing is being cooked?
Yes.
So that they can understand where the devolution, where the county governments are coming from, and also they understand issues surrounding the devolution. I'm not saying they don't know. They know, but when they hear it from somebody who is doing it on a daily basis, maybe they can understand even much better. Secondly, I think we devolved functions to counties. Now, we have human beings leading these counties. Some have done well, others are still grappling. But I also propose here that I think we should have a universal law, a national law. The same way the national government has National Government Constituencies Development Fund, we also make it mandatory for any budget of the county to also include Ward Development Fund. Because
MCS also raised that question sometime back.
It's not about actually even MCS, but me, I'm looking at equitable way of sharing these resources once they are at the county level, to increase the issue of governance, because Mheshimiwa talked about it, my colleague also talked about it. We need also to make our county assemblies more independent. Independent, I mean they should have their own budget, independent from the executive, such that they can make their own laws without any influence. But they can oversight.
Include amending some part of the constitution. That pass.
That's why we are going to the next topic of national bipartisan discussion. So in this case, I think we can make strengthen the governance at the county level, so that devolution can be delivered to Kenyans, so that all the services that have been devolved to counties can be realized effectively, because there is these checks and balances. Currently, the way I've seen, the way I've read, the way I've experienced, the executive seems to be everything, and that is dangerous, because we have very good governors who understand the issue of majority of them actually. Even since we started, it is not every governor who has a case, but a few others, very few, small number, have still cases in court, particularly corruption, governance related. So in this case, to avoid that, we need to strengthen day in. We learn from the previous mistakes, and we correct that by enacting the right laws to ensure devolution functions and works for the people.
Gabriel was saying that governance, and for this devolution to be fully realized, is like an elephant. It takes time to make a turn, but ultimately we will. But then, Churchill, the way you listen to the two gentlemen, they are in complete center of control of power in their respective jurisdictions. But when you listen to both of them, there seems to be some teething issue, which would include policy change, perhaps going back to the Constitution and amending some clauses in the Constitution to just bring them on board and have some kind of connection for the devolution to progress fully. What do you think?
Yeah, of course, the challenges. These are challenges that are expected because we are in the 10th year of the Constitution, and I think every constitution is never made perfect, and it's about that time that you review and see what are the challenges that you're experiencing, and like some of the issues being brought here are a little bit more structural, and it's about how do the various institutions work to bring efficiency in making devolution work. So, and some of these structural changes will of course involve not just policy changes but also constitutional changes, because remember that there is what the Constitution provides for the different organs of the three organs, the Council of Governors, the bicameral parliaments. So in bringing like a new formation that is being proposed, like a council. So it's not just a council of governors, but a council
the way he's proposing,
of devolution,
a council of counties,
something like that, which will now incorporate other players like the National Assembly to bring more a closer working relationship between the governors and the National Assembly. The challenge is that there are other opposition that you'll begin meeting, because the senators also have interest in this, and so those are things that you'll expect. They begin seeing that the National Assembly is trying to get their foot into their territory. So those are things that will be expected. But I think that it's sort of important to begin really to see how efficient can we make devolution work. If it means that we do away with some maybe one parliament, why not?
Yeah, that is the question I want to ask Gabriel. Would you be happy to be included in the running of the counties? What if there's that proposal? How would you receive it?
For all intent and for all purposes, we are involved in running of counties because we appropriate monies to them. I mean, so once you appropriate monies to counties, then you're involved in their governance, and that's what I was saying. The framers of our constitution, who I applaud because they really got us from a very bad position to where we are. And we have a very progressive constitution. But they're also a bit enthusiastic. And from the lens that they saw the country in, they really avoided what had been the government that Moi led at that time. So they really were very enthusiastic to make sure that some things never get to go back to where they were. And therefore, in that process, they did a lot of, when we talk about the bicameral parliament, you would understand, anybody would understand where they're coming from. But in the process, I think they put very ambitious proposals, and we passed them. And you all know how we passed the Constitution. So what we say is that probably at some point we will need to do some rearrangements. And that's why you find even now we're still doing some rearrangements of the Constitution. We are saying now members of cabinet should now come to the floor of the House and answer some questions. We are realigning. And I'm saying some of these changes will take a long time to align to our current issues. That said, I agree with the two gentlemen on having a more inclusive way of dealing with first of all appropriation to the counties, because at times we do appropriation that is not really at times is not friendly to the counties. At times we deny some counties that would have needed more funds, we deny them funds. Simply because we are not in the know. And as DG says, that in as much as we know these issues, when you hear them from someone who's dealing with them on a daily basis, then it makes more sense. And therefore I think we need to even have, I don't think the public participation that we have during budget is sufficient to understand the issues that are touching on counties appropriately for us to appropriate monies to them. So I think it would be a welcome idea. The only thing I depart from is how DG imagines this should be done. And he has allowed himself to mislead himself on saying that this is probably where there are bipartisan talks. The bipartisan talks cannot discuss issues that touch on the Constitution. The bipartisan talks cannot discuss anything that would change anything in the Constitution, because we have very clear mechanisms of changing the Constitution, and that would be a very serious thing to change. That changes the core instruments of the Constitution. So bipartisan talks, and I want to be very clear on this one, bipartisan talks are just some friendly talks that are going on, just people, it's not even like this show. This show is serious. We have come here to discuss issues of national importance. These bipartisan talks. I
love the way of putting some friendly.
Some friendly talks. Those things that you would have when, in the village, by the way, Victor, where I grew up, after we finish working, after we have picked tea, and now we have taken it to the buying centers, we would go to the shopping center and just, have some talks and pass away some time, pass time. That's what is happening in Bomas.
All right.
Not something very serious. That cannot be used, cannot be termed to deal with serious matters as we are discussing here about devolution.
I want us to close this discussion, but I want to give you just a quick one. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 years down the line, what have you achieved in terms of devolution? Scale of 1 to 10.
I would give it a 7.
A 7.
Yeah.
National Assembly, you have a role to play. DG, out of 10.
I think 8, and he has made a very serious, I think allegation.
It's not an allegation. It's a statement of fact.
Let's be serious on the issue touching on this country. Mheshimiwa, let me tell you something. The government that we have in place, which we have recognized as Azimio, is won by a margin of 200,000 votes. That tells you something. Almost half of this country voted otherwise. They did not, and then somebody will argue democracy, but Mheshimiwa, just a minute. That's why I did not disrupt when you are talking. Allow me to make my point. So the proposals that are going to come out of that discussion of tea and mandazi, the way
I'll get into that, DG. Okay. I'll get into that. Okay. I'll get into that. Just your wings.
He has given a need.
So I think so far,
yes,
having practiced devolution, having been part of it now for those almost 10, 11 months. I think 8 is fair.
8 is fair.
Yes, we need 7 to strengtten devolution seriously.
And that too is a big margin.
Yes.
That too is a big margin,
yes.
having in mind that we still have a long way to go.
Yes.
So I'd also assume that 2 is almost equivalent to 8 for us to fully get it right, according to me.
Yes.
We still have a long way to go. Churchill, out of 10?
I want to be a little mean and give it a 6.
My goodness. Okay. Why?
Because I'm expectant to something better, and I'm optimistic about the gains. I'm optimistic about the milestones that have been that we've gotten with devolution for the past 10 years. But I'm also expectant about something better, something about strengthening devolution, making devolution work, just like most of the other democracies across the world. You know, devolution is actually the way that many of the developed countries are. You know, you look at Japan, you look at Germany, you look at the United States. All those governments have got devolved units, and they have extremely strengthened devolved systems that make people not necessarily to see who the president or the head of state is.
Yes.
Because they know whatever they want, they can be able to get it, even at the local level.
Okay. I want to give you 1 second. Allow me to take you back. Perhaps something you're not privy to. What are some of the key pointers that will dominate the talks starting tomorrow in Uasin Gishu as far as this devolution is concerned, and what we need to move forward to?
Basically, counties come together to each one of them to showcase what they have managed to come up with, what they are doing in their various counties. Number 2, they will also be discussing the way forward for devolution, which is critical. Number 3 is when you come together, you synergize, you discuss, you see where the weaknesses are, you see how to fix them, you review also the past, and going forward, you also agree concretely on what to be done. There is also the issue of development partners and how the counties relate with the national government, because the national government will be part of this. So in this case, developing partners will also be exchanging views with our counties. And lastly is there will also be civil society and interested parties.
Yes.
As far as devolution is concerned. They will also be making their presentations on what they expect to see. And that is critical, because at the end of everything, all that conference is going to achieve is on how to improve on devolution, how to strengthen service delivery at the grassroots level, and how to better going forward devolution.
Absolutely.
Yes.
All right. Gentlemen, on the front page of the Star newspaper and the Standard, Star says dialogue. Raila Ruto meets U.S. Senator. The Standard says U.S. hand in Ruto-Raila talks. Let me start by reading a comment by yours truly, Gabriel Kagombe. You can get that piece on page 5 of the Star newspaper. And it says Kenya does not need external mediators. This in relation to the bipartisan talk that is a 10-member committee beginning at Ground Zero today at 11 a.m. at the Bomas of Kenya. But, Gabriel, allow me to quote you what you said. It is a DNA of Azimio leader Raila Odinga to call external people because he knows he has exhausted the local mechanisms. First of all, what are we discussing? The 2022 elections are over. The law says that when elections are over and a government is in place, you let the government make decisions about this country for the next 5 years. Let me quote you saying, calling people from Delaware, Tanzania, or Nigeria is just Raila trying to get extrajudicial means of getting power, which will not be possible. Allow me to fast forward and say, we must get used to doing things the constitutional way, within the law, or else there is going to be no need to hold elections every 5 years. The comment continues down therein. What did you mean by this?
I spoke in English, Victor. That is plain English. What I mean is,
right.
We must be decent enough to respect our constitution, to respect our laws. When we make laws, and we must be led by the law. That is the only decent thing to do. It is how democracies are done. And I've had DG alluding to something before you stopped him, because he was already misleading himself again. When the constitution, when the law says that the winner of the election shall be the one who achieves 50% plus 1, it means 1 vote, not 1%, 50% plus 1 vote, right? It's because it's a democracy, and that is, unfortunately, there is a law as it ought to be, or it should be, or we aspire, or is aspired, but there's the law as is. As it is now, the law says that the person who wins the presidency is a person who gets 50% of the votes cast plus 1 vote. If you both get, if you get 49% and one gets 50% and then an extra 1 vote, that's it. That person forms the government, or that party forms the government. It is the way, it is our law. I've also said we have a very clear mechanism of changing that law. We would need to call for a referendum, or and you know the two ways. You know this side of Azimio has tried to change to take a coup on the constitution in the past years, bringing BBI and all those things. So what I was saying yesterday, and all I'm saying in that paper is, you can call Senator Chris from Delaware. You can call everyone. Call even President Biden. Call everybody you want. This country has no legal crisis. We do not have a constitutional crisis. We have a government in place, and that government is executing its mandate. This story that for this country to run, Raila Odinga must be happy, has to stop. This country is bigger than Raila Odinga. This country has decided, we have decided for ourselves the way we shall govern this country. And the people went to the ballot, and they said, we want President William Ruto to make executive decisions, to execute and to exercise executive authority as given by Article 131 of the Constitution for the next 5 years. And that mandate was given to him legally, constitutionally. We cannot keep challenging the constitution that we made ourselves. We voted for this constitution in 2010. Every other legislation that has been done is consistent with this constitution. The IEBC Act is consistent with this legislation, not unless anybody wants to challenge it. And we have mechanism to challenge any act that you feel is inconsistent with the constitution. So we shall not continue using extrajudicial means, first of all, to disrupt the economy, to disrupt governments, and to get to government all the time. It is not constitutional. It is not democratic. And I wonder what democracy Raila Odinga is applauded for, if he cannot respect a simple decision of the people of Kenya. The majority of people of Kenya stood, they went to the ballot box, they voted for a government. And that government is executing its mandate. We must be decent people to allow that to happen. And therefore, and when you realize all these people, I heard that Oloo was in the country. I disagree, because I know how the protocols that are involved in when presidents come into countries. We were in Mozambique with the president last week from Thursday, and I know how elaborate it is when a president is visiting another country. These things that there was Suluhu, I don't know, at some place in Isiolo, I don't know, in Nanyuki, I don't know where, that was so clandestine, cannot be entertained. We are a sovereign country. if you decide that you'll be inviting other heads of states into this country behind the back of our president, what are you doing to our country? Why do we have sovereignty? You know, World War II was caused by such a breach of protocol. And we're saying that we cannot continue like that. So therefore, for me, even the whole issue of talks that is happening in Bomas. I've told you it's about chai na mandazi na yo maneno. If you want to have talks, if anybody has a problem with the constitution as it is, let's go to the ballot. Let them initiate a change of the constitution through a referendum. We shall vote for it.
All right. I gave you that opening remarks because there's an article you wrote here and it's going to be forming a part of a discussion. And let me also quote you. Because whatever comes out of those meetings cannot subvert the will of the people.
It cannot.
All right, let's take a break. DG, let's take a break. Churchill, let's take a break. When we come back, we are going to be forming this discussion further. And is it time to strike the balance? Time to see what's going to happen after the second round of talks at the Bomas of Kenya? We are going to be discussing that shortly after this break. Stay with us. All right, welcome back. Gabriel Kagombe, Francis Mwangagi, Deputy Governor of Machakos County. By the Gabriel Kagombe is Member of Parliament of Gatundu South, and Churchill Saoke. Now, gentlemen, I started by getting this comment here. There's an article written by Gabriel Kagombe. You can take a look at that story on page 5 of the Star newspaper. Senator Coons has been here 4 times. In March 2018, August 2022, March in 2023, again in August 2023, he's also jetted into the country. My question is, even before we go to the talks at the Bomas of Kenya, DG, why is Kenya so special to the heart of, quote unquote, the big boy, United States of America, that when there is a slight bit of instability in Kenya, US tends to feel it?
Simply, Kenya is a strategically placed country. Remember, all the countries that surround this country, save for Tanzania, have war, internal conflict. Look at both Sudan, South and South Sudan. Look at the Sudan now currently. Look at Somalia, Great Lakes, we know what is happening. So this is the only country the international community can point and say, we can now save this one, and from there we can now try to solve the conflicts surrounding that particular part of the world. And I think majorly that is the main reason. Number 2, Kenya is a gateway to those regions in terms of transport. Remember, we have landlocked countries. Landlocked countries are those countries that cannot access Indian Ocean. So in this case, Kenya facilitates both goods and services transportation to those particular countries. Now, the other reason also could be business. We know we have multinationals here. And these multinationals, sometimes they wield a lot of power. They influence a lot of that which happens elsewhere globally. They even participate in deciding who rules where. In many countries around the world where they operate. So somehow whenever there's some kind of instability, they also call their bigger brothers and say, hey, you can, from where you sit, you can voice some concern here, because we need to operate freely and in an environment that enables us to transact business. And finally, is the issue of self-interests. politics. What I mean is internationally we know we have capitalism, we have these other communism groupings. There's interest because in a case Kenya behaves in a certain way, maybe many countries will fall in place and then maybe shift from this form of governance to this other one. So it has to be safeguarded, including even influencing change of a leadership of a country. So in this case, there are so many factors that place Kenya in a situation where the international community will get interested on anything that seems to be happening.
I'm really interested in understanding this, Churchill, because we all know lightning does not strike one place twice. Once and that's it. But this man Chris Kun, he was in the country in 2018. The history says that in 2018 of March, he brokered handshake between President Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga. In 2022 August, he also engaged in shuttle diplomacy between then President-elect William Ruto and Raila Odinga. In March 2023, he led a delegation from the US to discuss trade, security, democracy with Kenya, with Kenyan counterparts. And finally, in August this year, actually is the country, jets into the country to hold meetings with Kenya Kwanza and Azimio leaders. Something that we don't know.
You know, first it's important just to emphasize that Kenya is in a strategic position for not just the US, but many of the Western powers, because of its strategic here means security-wise, geopolitical power distribution, you know, sustaining peace and stability in the region, and also the symbol of ideological inclination of the West in Africa. So we are being seen as very strategic, symbolically in the geopolitical distribution, not just in the region but in the continent. And with that being so, therefore, the hegemon, the world hegemon, will have a lot of interest in what happens in the country. You know, there is how we within the country see whatever happens, and there is what those who are outside see it. If, you know, there could be small spots of conflict within the country, and we see it as small spots, but what does the international community see it, you know? And so the Americans and, you know, the United States, being that they have strategic, economic, political, and security interests in Kenya, they are keen on having a stable country. And, you know, Kun being, you know, within the circles of the Democrats, Kun is a very key figure, you know, and you cannot therefore separate some key high-level figures within the Democratic Party, which is ruling in the US, with the several travels of Kun in Kenya. Whether, irrespective of which political periphery informs or influences is coming into Kenya, the fact is that he represents very high stakes. His presence represents very high stakes.
Who invites who? States sends him, or Kenya invites him?
It can either be way. Usually, when you want to influence political, when you want to influence certain political directions in any country, the hegemon can decide to take it as a matter of promoting international peace and security and send their own delegation. Like what they did in Sudan. They created a framework for peace in South Sudan. And these are things that they have done before. They can be able to do it. The other alternative is that the local actors can incognito do the invite.
Are you aware of his arrival in the country?
I'll tell you, first of all, and I respect Churchill's opinion, because it's his and it must be respected. But I really know that. But you know, we are a sovereign country. In as much as we have a big brother called the USA, we have a hegemon, yes. But you know, we are a sovereign country with a constitution. We have not suspended the constitution. And like I said, we do not have a constitutional crisis. Like the DG put it, we are not like our brothers who have a crisis, internal crisis. We do not have any crisis. By the way, we have zero crisis. Like I told you, these talks are akin to the pacifier you give to a baby when they're crying. You give them a pacifier so that they stop crying, but you know there's no milk, there is nothing, there is no nutritional value to it. It's just a pacifier. And because, you know, you have fed a child, the child is fed, you know, they're just crying, they're just being a crybaby. So we have had everything within we have no constitutional crisis, everything is working, but we have someone just crying. So what do you do to them? You give them a pacifier. And I know it comes at a very high cost to the government and to the country at large. Because the people who are now stuck and holed up in bombers should have been involved in better ways of managing the country. Because I want to ask you something. Whether Kun is here by his own invitation or by the invitation of Raila Odinga or the whoever it is, when we have any conversation, where is it going to be anchored? You know, and you know, you have read something, you have talked about his visits. And one thing that I have seen, the common denominator, is Raila Odinga. You said in 2018 he came to broker talks between Uhuru and Raila Odinga. Yeah. You said in 2022 he came to broker between William Ruto and Raila Odinga. Now you said another one he came to do business or something, and then now he's here again to broker talks between Raila Odinga and you know. And you know, Raila Odinga is a common denominator of so many things. When there's mandamano, Raila Odinga. When there's violence, Raila Odinga. When there's death, Raila Odinga. You know, so we just say that we also tired, and that's why we give in as and telling them, okay, just have this and chill a minute as we look at this. Because I want to ask you, Victor, supposing it's true. What the Azimio side is saying, that we want to go and discuss the cost of living in Bomas. How do you anchor that in law? Supposing they go and come with very good proposal. And then, where do you take it? How does that lower the cost of living? How would you do it? I want to imagine, I want to know, you educate me. How would you do it? There isn't any way. The only way to deal with the cost of living is a Finance Act, which they have taken to court. And that can only be done in the National Assembly or within Parliament, within the constitutional framework. Yeah. And I keep saying, you know, we must be honest and decent human beings. If we live in you cannot come, if he who seeks equity must do equity. If you want to be treated well by the Constitution, you must treat it well. You cannot suspend the Constitution when it doesn't favor you and now invoke it when it favors you. Okay. The Constitution is the Constitution, and that's it. And that's the end of it.
Gabriel says that it's a pacifier given to Azimio. This sounds a bit kind of harsh, that even the talks at the Bomas of Kenya is quote unquote a pacifier to silence a crying baby.
You are seeing a fear of a known agent in the name of Mheshimiwa. He has talked a lot of things, but they're repeating the same point. Fear of unknown. Mheshimiwa, this country has lost a lot since you came to power. I have a lot of respect for Kenya Kwanza, and I'm among the people who opposed violent demonstrations when they were called. I talked the way I'm talking, and said, we can look another way of solving whichever issues are there. But now that we are at Bomas, I think we should be serious a bit. I think Mheshimiwa must have been out of the country and came to maybe to contest in Gatundu and was.
He said because somewhere last week.
We were here 2007, 2008. We know what happened. We know the destruction that was there. Why, if...
You also here in 1982.
If
Are you isolating issues?
So,
even in 1982, we were here.
In this case...
we know the common denominator.
In this case, the issue of Raila Odinga is not here nor there. Because Kenya Kwanza had a list of their issues. Azimio had theirs. And what we are discussing here about what Mheshimiwa has been labeling so much, talking about, none of the issues he's raising are in either of the sides list. So in this case, Mheshimiwa, if it is the issue of IEBC, I'm sure you would wish to have a fair referee. Don't just say there's a law, there's a law, there's a law. You know, Mheshimiwa, look at the country. Don't look at you. Don't look at
the law.
Yes,
of this country.
But what I'm saying,
given to us by ourselves in the Constitution of 2010.
You are an advocate of civility. I wish you could listen a bit. You know, if it is IEBC, let it be those managing the next election be people who can be trusted by all players.
And that can only be done in Bomas?
No, just a bit. It can be a process.
No,
it can start somewhere and end somewhere. So in this case, I think there are issues. When we are talking of cost of living, yes, we are saying it can be discussed in Parliament, but we are also forgetting the Constitution that you keep on quoting. That Article 1, the sovereign power belongs to people of Kenya.
Not to Kalonzo Musyoka.
Not
the people of Kenya is not Raila Odinga.
So in this case, Victor, I think we need to be sober and put this country at first. I'm against anything, even if whatever they are discussing in Bomas brings to what he is fearing a lot, a share of the government. That is one thing I will oppose, openly and nationally. Everywhere I will oppose. Why? We are where we are because of that kind of a thing. But when it comes to the issues that were listed, I think they make sense if the two sides decide, and going forward, the country remains peaceful. In any case,
yes.
Will Mheshimiwa be happy? Assume he is now the President of the Republic of Kenya. Will he be happy leading a country that is vertically divided politically? What does that one tell you? Will you be happy leading a country when you wake up, you are just seeing demonstrations, people killing each other?
Is he supposed to answer that?
No, he is not supposed to answer, because I know what I expect.
It's a rhetorical question.
So, in this case,
and he knows.
In this case,
we can even bend the rule and
just a minute. Let me finish.
Okay.
Just not. Civility demands that you allow I finish, then you come.
But you asked the question. I wanted to give you a straight answer.
So, Victor, we are seeing a scenario here where we want to stabilize the country. It is in the interest of Kenya Kwanza that they got a peaceful, united country. Going forward, they will deliver their mandate more and better if the country is peaceful, if the country is united, if the country, all of us, we recognize and respect the current leadership.
Churchill, when you listen to the two gentlemen, of course, not a complete representation of Azimio or Kenya Kwanza, but we need to strike the balance. The two sides, they are going to have their talks beginning today. If you had what was said yesterday, starting with Kithure Kindiki, he said that if the talks collapse, there should be no mandamano. The president also said, whichever way, there should be no mandamano. But let's strike the balance. Azimio had their set of demands on the table, same as Kenya Kwanza. But where do we strike the balance, even before we get to the real gist of the discussion that's going to begin today? The terms of engagement.
I think in striking the balance is that we first needed to appreciate that as we go to the talks, is there a problem?
Is whose problem?
Is there a problem that is making us go to the talks? If we are able to answer an affirmative action, an affirmative answer to that question, that there is a problem that needs to be solved, then that is the point where we can be able to begin striking a balance. If
Do we have a problem or
if
not?
if we go to the talks with the belief that there is no problem,
all right,
and we go to the talks in the belief that there is a problem where, you know, we have two contending parties here. All right, we have two contending parties here. We must first agree that why are we coming to the table? Are we coming to the table because there is no problem, or are we coming to the table because there is a problem? If we are coming to the table because there is no problem, we are wasting our time. If we are coming to the table because there is a problem, then that is the beginning of a common ground. Because then we will now begin and ask ourselves, what are the issues that we need to discuss?
But in this case, both sides seem to think that there's a problem.
That is what we can presume yet. And you know, when parties go to negotiation tables, these hardline positions are expected, all right, in the initial stages. The hardline positions are always expected, where one party will always want to show that, you know, we are strong, we are not into this, there's no crisis, there is a deep crisis. One side will want to express there is a deep crisis that needs to be solved. Another party will express that there is no crisis. These are things that are expected.
Yes.
The bottom line, deep within them, they'll always know that we need to sit down.
Okay, let me ask you, as a Kenyan, let me just, with no political affiliation, whichever way, is there a problem or not?
I think that there are issues that need to be discussed. There are issues that need to be discussed as a country moving forward, and you know, the list and the agenda provided there is irrespective. There are issues that need to be discussed. When you look at even the ordinary people, they are anxious and are expectant about these negotiations. When you talk to ordinary Kenyans, they will tell you that, you know, they are feeling the pinch of high cost of living and things like that. And I'm not saying this to mean that the solutions that are going to come from bombers will solve the cost of living. I'm just trying to highlight the fact that there are issues that need to be discussed. And when you look at the electoral, what came out of the elections,
yes.
You know, we have a government, yes, but the fact that in the evolution of our democracy, we have been trying to move from an extremely closed process of electoral process to an open electoral process, where we can be able to verify from end to end a winner of election. Now, the more we have been trying to advance this democracy, the more we have wanted a perfect election.
Yes.
And I think, let's hold on, Mahesh, and I think that as we go even into these processes, we need to ask ourselves, how, when we have close to maybe about 40% of the people of Kenya questioning an electoral process, we need to objectively ask ourselves, today or tomorrow someone else might want to be president. Do we have the right, whatever we have as is now, is it something that is able to provide for us a free, fair, and verifiable election? Because there's one thing I one time said on this station, that you can have an electoral process that gives you a good president today, and you do not want to interrogate it because there are some parts that you have control over or you do not have control over. But you know what this thing we call sovereignty is something that is so key to a country, to an extent that, and I said it on this TV station, the fact that we are able to get technology from outside to determine who leads us as a nation makes us even more vulnerable to external interferences than any other negotiator who is coming from outside. Because that person can determine for us at some point future date a president who is not even a Kenyan.
You know, Victor, you asked whether we have a problem. You asked whether you have a problem.
On a Monday morning.
You asked whether we have a problem.
Yes.
To be discussed. And we have a huge problem to be discussed. We have one family with so much political power in its hands. We have one family that has Ruth Odinga in the National Assembly, Oburu in the Senate, Rosemary in Iyala, and Raila as the leader of opposition. That is so much power in one family. And that is the problem in this country. That is what needs to be discussed in Bomas. How can one family...
How does that affect them? My friend in Moyale.
It affects everyone. I mean, when there's Maandamano in this country, and we are having Maandamano because Raila Odinga now wants the presidency. Because apparently no one else should be in fact, it's just because there are probably no more members of that family.
Yes.
They think they should be representing Gatundu South now. And that is why we have Maandamano. That is why we have the crisis that we have. This crisis is just about earning a place for one family at the table of this nation.
Apart from that reason, any other reason?
We don't have any other reason to speak. I mean,
what do you mean?
Let me tell you something. I've told you,
right?
This country has no constitutional crisis. I agree. There could be issues. There are issues of cost of living, yes, but we are not going to discuss them at Bomas. I agree. There could be issues of IBC. We have a clearly spelled out mechanism of how to do it. In fact, we started that process in Parliament. There was no crisis. Everybody voted for it. So not unless you want to say that we removed everything from the constitutional mandated institutions and now we take it to the streets. So that we say if there is a SRC, there was a problem. Let me tell you. Excuse me. Let me finish, Victor. We had a problem with the remuneration of teachers. SRC has its work. So when there's a problem with the remuneration of teachers and we need to increase the pay, we go to Bomas. We have a problem with the remuneration of doctors. So do we go to Bomas?
Not everything.
Not everything that goes to Bomas. But it's... In fact, in any case, and I dare say that, in this country, we do not have anything to take to Bomas.
No.
We have nothing to take to Bomas. And I've told you this.
Yes.
We are staring at a very dangerous precedence that we can suspend the constitution at the whims of one individual. That we shall now sit and say now we can suspend the institutional mandate given by the constitution for parliament to determine the cost of living, to determine how the country shall be ruled, and we take it to Bomas. What we are doing right now is creating a very dangerous precedent.
Okay.
And you know, let me tell you something. When you find me taking this stance, is because I know we have been on the other side, and we could have called for that.
Okay.
We could have called for that if we wanted. We have been, until August last year, we were in the opposition, and you know that. But we were decent enough to know
that
government. We were outside for all intended purposes. We were outside. We were the opposition.
That was a
No. We were in the opposition. Don't trivialize this.
I think based on what you said.
No.
It seems that
don't allow it lying down. You know, you have given him a lot of time. All his government. Just listen.
You are going to then go ahead,
just a minute
for us. Go ahead.
You see, he was with the head of state. We respect that. And by the way, I've traveled with him more than more than you.
That's debatable.
But
and that's neither here nor there.
But the thing is, Kenya Kwanza has listed issues they want to take to Bomas. They have even participated in coming up with a technical committee to discuss these issues. What we are witnessing this morning, and I can submit to Kenyans, is an underliner who is scared for nothing. Mheshimiwa, you know, people fear.
You know, we have changes. A country.
You know, the late Mandela once said, where you stand depends on where you sat.
Yes.
In this case, some people fear. And I assure them there should be no fear. There are serious issues which needs a bipartisan approach. just the issues, you know, much more internally, we could be enjoying here saying there are no issues. But immediately, the country sees there is a committee seated somewhere, they have cooled down, these political temperatures are no more.
Yeah.
Kenya Kwanza will implement their manifesto easily, comfortably, and without no challenge. In this case, there are issues to be discussed.
Yes.
That's why if there was no problem, the two sides, one would have proposed and the other one could have said there are no issues, like he said.
All right. We need to go. Gentlemen. Okay. No, let's not start. Thank you so much for watching. Gabriel, Kagombe, thank you so much for waking up in the morning. We've informed Kenyans, we've educated Kenyans. Let's do this again next time. Gabriel Kagombe, Member of Parliament, Gatundu South, okay, and Machakos Deputy Governor. Francis Mwangagi, asante sana. Churchill, Saoke, thank you so much, gentlemen, for gracing my show. You, as a viewer, thank you so much for watching. Sasa, asanteni for watching. Good morning. All right.
Hakuna discussion.